It was the saddest day for Muslims. Prophet of Islam, Muhammad, had just passed away. After a life of hardship, he left the thriving religion for the Muslims. Thanks to his efforts and leadership, Muslims were in a much better position than they were in the early days of Islam. However, the enemies of Islam were looking for an opportunity to destroy this newly emerging religion before it spread. It was certain that they would take action with the death of the Prophet. The overall situation was very critical. However, the Muslims knew very well what to do. When their Prophet was alive, he told them that there would be leaders who would lead his community after him, that is, people who would represent religion in his name. He did not appoint these caliphs himself. He left how they would be chosen to the will of the Muslims. Muslims wanted to choose a leader who would represent the rules of the religion of Islam in both his personal and social life. The person to be elected had to earn the respect of the society and had to be an exemplary Muslim with his personality. In this period, Islamic society consisted of three main groups. The Muhajirs, who were the first people to believe in Muhammad and migrated with him from Mecca to Medina. The second group consisted of Ansars, who supported the Prophet and the Muhajirs in the city of Medina. Finally, there were those who converted to Islam with the spread of the religion to cities outside of Mecca and Medina. On the day of Muhammad's death, Aws and Khazraj tribes from Ansar gathered in the date garden called Caliphate Bani Sa'id. The leaders of this tribe thought it appropriate that the Prophet's caliph should be chosen from among the Ansar. As a candidate, they put Sa'd bin Ubadah, the chief of the Khazraj tribe, to the fore. Sa'd bin Ubadah accepted this offer. Yet, among the tribe members, there were those who opposed this suggestion. Some of the tribe members said that the Muhajirs as well as the Ansars had a say in this matter. They suggested that one person from the Ansar and one from the Muhajir should jointly lead the Muslims. While the speeches were going on about the subject, Omar, who was one of the leading Muslims of Muhajirs, found out about this. He took two prominent Muslims, Abu Bakr and Abu Ubaidah bin Jarrah, with him and went to the place where the Aws and Khazraj tribes gathered. Abu Bakr was known for his devotion and closeness to the Prophet. All Muslims respected him and listened to his words. In his speech, Abu Bakr stated that the Ansar Muslims did very valuable things for Islam, but the first caliph should be chosen from the immigrants who had been with the Prophet from the very beginning. He presented two candidates to his audience, Omar and Abu Ubaidah. But neither of them wanted this task. They said, "By Allah, we cannot take this task upon us while you are alive. Because you are the most virtuous of the first immigrants and you are the caliph of the Messenger of Allah in leading the prayer. Stretch out your hand, we will swear allegiance to you." And they walked towards him. Meanwhile, Bashir bin Sa'd from the audience acted before them and he pledged allegiance to Abu Bakr, that is, that he would follow him and listen to his orders as long as they did not contradict the rules of Islam. All of those present pledged allegiance to the new leader of Islam. Thus, Abu Bakr was elected caliph after the majority of the Muslims in Medina pledged allegiance. The period of Abu Bakr and Khulafai Rashidin thus started. Khulafa is the plural word of the word Khalifa or Caliph, and Rashidin is the plural word of Rashid, which means one who is on the right path, one who clings to the truth. The name given to this period is explained with a phrase of the Prophet. In this phrase, Muhammad said to those who will live after him, "When you encounter any conflict, your duty is to follow my sunnah and the sunnah of the Khulafai Rashidin." What is meant by sunnah here is Muhammad's way of life. In particular, most Sunni Muslims think that the caliphs of this period lived an exemplary life for all Islamic leaders who would come after them. It is also a very important period in terms of understanding how the Caliphate emerged and took shape. In order to understand this more clearly, we will examine the lives of the caliphs, the important events they experienced, and how these events contributed to the development of the institution of the Islamic Caliphate. After the death of Muhammad, a very difficult task awaited Abu Bakr. The Byzantine and Sassanid empires in the north posed a serious threat to the Muslims. However, this was not the biggest problem. In the Arabian Peninsula, some tribes who were Muslims in the time of Muhammad took advantage of his death, declared that they had abandoned Islam, and declared war against Muslims. However, these rebellions were not the only problem. Some Muslim tribes said that they would continue to pray but would not give zakat, which was a tax collected to help the poor. An argument broke out around Abu Bakr. Some did not want to fight with these tribes as long as they remained Muslims. Others said that zakat is one of the cornerstones of Islam and that any concession on this issue would cause the Islamic society to deteriorate. Abu Bakr was also in favor of the second view. For him, zakat was one of the basic elements that ensured the order of the Islamic society. He did not want to risk the fundamental structure of Islam just because some tribes wanted to do so. Abu Bakr was determined to stop those who rebelled against the collection of zakat. Waiting for one of the armies to return to Medina, the Caliph led a 100-man cavalry unit in September 632. He marched on Hisn al-Fazari. After a short battle, he dispersed the rebels in Zulkassa. In this way, Abu Bakr put an end to the rebels and the insurgents who refused to give alms. In particular, his determination on the zakat revolts showed the importance of the caliph for the Islamic community. One of the things expected from the person in the office of caliph was to ensure the unity and solidarity of the Islamic world. Islam was a whole, and the caliph could not allow it to fall into pieces. Abu Bakr, with his firm but determined attitude on this issue, once again proved his respectable position in the eyes of Muslims and showed that he would fulfill his duties as a caliph. After the suppression of the rebellion movements, Abu Bakr, through his successful commanders such as Khalid bin Walid, ensured that Islam was secured and spread in the Middle East. The prominent feature of the Abu Bakr period in terms of the caliphate was the management style based on consultation. The caliph himself, who was brought to power as a result of a consensus, did not see his office as an inaccessible institution. In his state affairs, Abu Bakr sought the opinions of both civil servants and members of the society. While appointing governors, he consulted the ideas of the governors on this issue and mostly avoided giving definite orders that would put people in a difficult position. He asked his people to warn him if he made a mistake. During the time of Abu Bakr, the office of caliphate was perceived as a duty rather than a state leadership. The caliph was seen as a guide whose wisdom and loyalty to Islam are trusted rather than a ruler with unquestionable power and authority. This caliphate order established by Abu Bakr was not forgotten by Islamic scholars who came hundreds of years after him, and his caliphate period was seen as an ideal Islamic order that was set as an example to Muslims of all periods. The first caliph, Abu Bakr, was loved and accepted by the vast majority of Muslims from the first days he was elected to office. When Abu Bakr fell seriously ill at the beginning of the month of August in the year 634, he wanted to appoint someone in his place so that the office of the caliph would not be empty. He wanted his replacement to be someone who would be accepted and loved by Muslims collectively. While he was with Uthman and Omar, he addressed the people as follows: "Would you agree with the person I have chosen as the caliph for you? I did not appoint one of my relatives. By Allah, I pondered with all my might, and eventually I found out that Omar bin Khattab is very suitable. Listen to him and follow him." All those present said, "We have heard and we will obey." Thus, in the Caliphate, the Omar era has begun. Omar, like his predecessor Abu Bakr, took action against the Byzantine and Sassanid empires to secure and spread Islam. Omar's period was very fruitful in terms of campaigns and conquests. The Palestinian lands and Jerusalem were conquered in his time. The victory of Yarmouk, which caused the Byzantine army to be badly damaged and the Muslims to go into Anatolia, was also achieved during his reign. The Islamic lands were gradually expanding. However, the feature that made Omar stand out was not the successful military expeditions he planned, but his work on justice. For him, people's trust in the state and the justice was very important. Omar gave the following advice to the governors he sent to their posts. "I did not appoint you to reign and dominate the people. You will be their guide. Everyone will follow you. Do not praise them unjustly so that they do not become spoiled. Do not shut your doors in their faces so that the strong do not oppress the weak." Before going to their places of duty, all the goods and wealth of the governor and state officials were recorded. Those who had an excessive increase in wealth in the future were questioned. Their situation was investigated. Every year, during the pilgrimage season, he would call the governors to Medina, ask them to bring some people with them, and get information from them about the status of the provinces and whether there were any complaints from the people. He would also pay full salary to the governor and officials so that they did not need bribes. During Omar's caliphate, there were no internal conflicts among Muslims. Like Abu Bakr, he was accepted and respected by the majority of Muslims. At the head of the state, he served more as a guide and controller rather than being a ruler. One day, while Omar was in the Masjid al-Nabawi mosque, Abu Lulu, who was of Sassanid origin, wanted to avenge the military campaigns carried out by the Muslims. He attacked Omar and the Caliph was seriously injured with his dagger. The Caliph, who had been in the office for 10 years, understood that he was nearing the end of his life. Unlike Abu Bakr, he did not want to appoint a replacement. Omar gathered some of the most prominent and devoted Muslims. He instructed them to choose a caliph. He included his son, Abdullah, in this delegation to provide a majority in case of a head-to-head vote, provided that he was not elected caliph. Omar did not want his son to be caliph. It would be inappropriate for a caliph to appoint his own son. By gathering the members of the delegation in one place, he assigned Abu Talha al-Ansari to ensure that the meeting would not be disturbed until the election was complete. He gave Suhayb Rumi the task to lead the congregation in prayer. The delegation chose Uthman. The first years of Uthman's caliphate was overall successful. With his caliphate, it was seen that the armies of Islam advanced rapidly into Iran. In this period, Isfahan, Hamadan, Kirman, Armenia, Georgia, Dagestan, and Azerbaijan were conquered, and the conquest of Iran was largely completed. In the last years of the Uthman period, some problems began to emerge. People were annoyed that some governors were starting to collect too much wealth and mistreating the people. Serious conflicts arose as Uthman was deemed inadequate to solve this problem. This was a turning point for the history of the Caliphate. Abu Bakr and Omar also had to deal with serious problems before. However, the authority of both caliphs was widely accepted. This situation that Uthman experienced was a first. It was the first time that the authority and effectiveness of a caliph was such a serious matter of debate among Muslims themselves. The debate about Uthman's failure to act on the governors grew. it eventually turned into a full-blown conflict. Rebels from Kufa, Basra, and Egypt terrorized in Medina, and after keeping Caliph Uthman under siege in his house for days, they killed him. With the murder of Uthman in June 656, this conflict, which entered a new phase and seriously affected the Islamic world after him, was called Al-Fitnatul Kubra, or the Great Strife. Uthman had not determined a successor after him. Some Muslims wanted Ali to be the Caliph. However, Ali did not want to accept this offer immediately and directed this offer to Talha bin Ubaidullah and Zubair bin Awwam. However, they also did not want to accept it. As a result of the insistence, Ali was brought to the office of the Caliphate. The events that emerged after the murder of Uthman covered almost the entire period of Ali and caused the conquests to stop, and the confusion would last for centuries in the Islamic world. The most important issue waiting for Ali was to find Uthman's murderers. However, it was not easy to deal with the rebels who said we all killed Uthman, as there was no particular killer in sight. Ali dismissed some governors who did not want to pledge allegiance to him, especially the Syrian governor Muawiyah. Muawiyah, who was the leader of the Umayyads, could not accept being dismissed and did not let the new governor into the city. He did not give allegiance to Ali and accused him of being indifferent to the killing of the old caliph and harboring the rebels in his army. He started provoking against Ali. The disagreement between Ali and Muawiyah was actually about the qualifications that the person to stand at the head of the caliphate. Ali preferred a modest life that was more in line with the lifestyle of the Prophet of Islam and the three caliphs who preceded him. For him, the caliph had to act more as an attendant and a guide than a ruler. The caliph had to live like other Muslims. Muawiyah, on the other hand, was proposing a model of a caliphate with more authority. His lifestyle was not modest. He and those around him had a very serious wealth. The difference of opinion intensified. Ali invited him to stop fighting and give allegiance again. However, it was clear that Muawiyah had no intention of accepting this. There was another group who opposed both sides. They wanted to kill both Muawiyah and Ali. The group was successful in killing Ali, but it failed to kill Muawiyah. After this event, Muawiyah became the head of the Islamic world and the Umayyad period began for the Caliphate. During the Umayyad period, the Caliphate became a complete monarchy. The authority of the Caliphate was passed from father to son. In many aspects, the Umayyad period in the Caliphate is seen as the opposite of the Khulafai Rashidin period. In another video, we will examine the Umayyad Caliphate, which has a crucial place in the history of Islam.